Hey everyone, welcome to the Gilbert.K show. From Vietnam to Silicon Valley, from auctioneer to Audible star, he's lived 5 lives and still going strong at 84. Meet the voice behind countless public domain classics and one of the most inspiring audiobook producers out there. Let's give a big welcome to the one and only Mike Vendetti.
Hey, Mike, pleasure to have you on the show. How are you today?
I am fantastic today. You're 84 years old. I woke up.
That's amazing. So we're going to start our segment, Laying the Foundation. You live 5 lives in one: military man, tech pro, auctioneer, and now an audiobook producer and narrator. When people ask you what you do, how do you even begin to answer?
Well, I tell them I narrate audiobooks now, and I can show them that. And people, if you're an auctioneer, can you do the auction talk? Of course I can. But that's something I did. In the military, something I did that, I get around. I live in a small city of Florence, Colorado, very small, about 5,000 people. I think our population is about the same as our altitude. And I go through town in my power wheelchair that the VA gave me. And, they know I'm a veteran, and we don't anyhow, that's me.
Yeah, that's amazing. So let's go back to a turning point, 1965 in Vietnam. You were wounded and medically retired as a young Army captain. That moment must have felt like an ending. Did you have an idea it was actually the start of several incredible careers to come?
I didn't really realize that. At the time, I thought, if you're in a situation like that, and they call it what I got as a $1 million wound, because it got me out of Vietnam. I ended up losing a leg, but that's whatever it is. But I felt very fortunate in being alive, because you're in a situation where you could very easily end up dead. And it's one thing in the hospital. When I was at Walter Reed, I was on an orthopedic ward, and with other guys that had been wounded in Vietnam, and you get somebody come in that was wounded in an accident, or, broke a leg or something like that in an accident. And it's all poor me, and the guys that were injured in combat, they didn't have that attitude. They just had an attitude that they were fortunate to be alive.
Yeah.
And I don't know, I've always been a pretty positive person. And, at the time, I thought, well, I was very fortunate. I got to go back on active duty when I got out. That's how I made captain. I was second lieutenant when I went in the hospital, made first lieutenant in the hospital, was promoted to captain when I went to adjutant general school, which is a clerk-type school, and did 6 years, 8 months, and 14 days, or something like that. And I retired with a disability retirement, which I've been able to do a lot of things that I wouldn't normally be able to do were it not for the disability income. So,
Wow.
I looked at it quite positively, and I think you'll find most guys that something like that happens say, hey, I'm alive.
Yeah, that's true. So by 1968, you entered Silicon Valley during its earliest boom. What was it like to work in tech before tech became cool? Any wild or weird tech memories from that time?
Well, there were, I sold printed circuit boards. And actually, when I got out of the Army, I got a job selling business forms. But the buyer that bought business forms also bought circuit boards. So, when that came around, that's what I did. I sold printed circuit boards. So, you had all these companies starting up, Atari, Commodore. People haven't even heard of Commodore, but there were lots of companies like that starting up. And I specialized in doing prototype circuit boards. So these were just small runs. And one of the reps came in and says, hey, there's a company called Apple. If you build them some free boards, I don't do anything for free.
That's amazing.
But
Wow.
I just there were so many startup companies there that they just venture capital was a big deal. They get venture capital and they'd sell themselves and get some money and start off. And I just did the circuit boards and outside salesman. Really loved it.
Yeah, that's great. We're going to take a break right now and we're going to play a game, This or That. And it's a rapid fire game for the audience to get to know you. In this game, you'll need to choose one or two options as quickly as possible. Are you ready, Mike?
I'm ready.
Okay. Auctioneer's gavel or narrator's microphone?
The auctioneer gavel.
A rapid fire auction chant or measured dramatic audiobook narration?
I really love doing the auction chant, but that takes a lot more to be an auctioneer than just chanting. So, auction chant.
Silicon Valley boardroom or a lively auction floor?
Oh, I love the auction floor.
Army fatigues or business suit?
Business suits.
Speaking to a live crowd or speaking to an invisible audience of listeners?
I like to work a live crowd.
Yeah. Military discipline or creative freedom?
Creative freedom.
Cutting edge tech gadgets or classic literature books?
I like classic literature.
Leading a team or working solo?
I like working solo. I've worked with a team. A very small team, okay?
Yeah.
But I do some bits with a small team, all right?
Yeah. Closing a sale or closing a chapter?
There's nothing like closing a sale.
And finally, retirement or reinvention?
Reinvention.
Okay, we're going to move on to the next segment, from tech to voice tech, audiobooks, and reinvention. After 21 years in the tech industry, you became an auctioneer. That's a massive pivot. What made you step into that world? And how did your auctioneer training shape your voice and delivery later as a narrator?
Well, I'd always loved the auction sound. And the tech industry was moving offshore. It was changing very, very quickly. And I could see the end of that. And I had a chance to go to auction school. And I remember as a kid, there was a auctioneer, Speed Riggs. He did the tobacco auctions. They don't have tobacco auctions anymore. But, everybody tried to imitate Speed Riggs. And I just was always fascinated by auctions. And I went to auction school. And you come out of auction school, you think you can set the world on fire. Well, you come out of auction school, you don't know anything. And people, it's like it's really hard to get a job as an auctioneer because you don't know what you're doing. You can do the chant, but you don't know how to do auctions. And the only way to learn how to do auctions is to do them. Yeah. And it takes years to really develop that skill. And I was fortunate in that I started doing lien sales of automobiles. And I learned a lot doing that. And I just became, one day I realized that I was a better auctioneer than Ferris Rogers, who taught me how to be an auctioneer. And first time I saw Ferris, okay, he was really a cool old dude. And first time I saw him, he was on TV selling the red shoes from the Dorothy thing. Dorothy's shoes, Ferris was really a character. But I became a better auctioneer, and it takes time. Yeah. And I never met a microphone I didn't love.
Yeah. Are there any warm-up exercises you do before the chanting, the auctioneer chanting?
Betty bought some butter, but she said, butter, Betty, if I put in my batter, make my batter better, so I want some better butter, put in my batter, make my batter better. So 'tis better, Betty bought some better butter.
That's amazing. Okay, fast forward to 16 years ago. You recorded your first audiobook on Audible. What pulled you into voiceover work, and why did you gravitate toward public domain classics?
Well, okay. Let's see if I can remember all these things. That's in a test like public domain classics and so forth. Okay.
Yeah.
I retired from doing auctions and moved to Colorado. And as an auctioneer, unless you work for the large auto auctions, it's tough to set up again. I talked to another auctioneer, and it's true. You got to wait for the old guy to die before, you're going to become the auctioneer in town. But I started doing audiobooks on LibriVox. This is where you record for free, and all these went in the public domain. And, I started there, and I got really motivated after doing Think and Grow Rich. And so I called Audible, and I pitched myself. And I was fortunate. It was early then. Audiobooks were not big as they are now. And I got a contract with them to narrate audiobooks. Now, the reason why I choose audiobooks from the public domain is they are in the public domain. You don't have to pay the author.
Yeah.
It takes 90 years to go into the public domain. But once it does, you don't have to pay them. So I can pick a book and narrate it, publish it on Audible, and keep everything that they pay me, as opposed to paying it with a creator.
That's amazing. So for someone used to high-stakes pitches or auction calls, was it hard to slow down and let the words breathe during audiobook narration?
At first a little bit. It's not the auction chant isn't really that fast. It's a number and a filler word. I'm at 75 now. What do you mean? They're now 85, 85, give me 99. They're now 95, 95, go 100. Well, that sounds real fast. But it was not that difficult to slow down and actually read things.
That's good to know. That's good to know. So what does your home recording setup look like today? Can you walk us through a day in the life of an 84-year-old audiobook producer, Mike Vendetti?
Day in the life. Okay, I get up and watch television for a while, and then I might go have lunch with my son who lives in the same town, and come back home and settle down, and then I'll go work 3 or 4 hours doing audiobooks. Right now I'm working on Main Street, which is really a cool book.
Yeah, that's amazing.
That's about it, and it just I'll take a break and so forth, because I was doing auctions. The thing is, you gotta protect your voice, and you get guys, if you're doing something, and all of a sudden your veins start sticking out, so forth, you're gonna lose your voice, and I try to avoid pushing my poor old voice that hard.
Yeah. So let's talk about storytelling style. Do you read the book first to prep character voices and tone, or do you dive in cold and discover the characters as you record?
Well, hey, AI is great. I go to AI and I find out about the characters, because there's nothing like getting to the end of the audiobook and find out that this guy is not what you played him as. I don't spend a lot of time marking up and so forth. But as I am recording, that's when I make my edits and so forth. If something doesn't sound right to me, then I'll go back and re-record it. So it takes 3 to 5 hours to actually produce an hour of audiobook narration for me. Some guys can sit down and they just do it. I will get to that later about guys that get into doing audiobooks. But some guys can sit down, and just read it off and play it. But with me, it takes me longer to get things done.
How big is the book usually?
Gee, I've bragged, I've got 800 books on Audible.com. Well, a lot of these are short stories that, because a lot of really good writers would sell short stories, like Philip.K. Dick, to, magazines. And copyrights are strange. If the copyright isn't renewed within a certain period, it goes into the public domain. And if they renew it, it'll stay in the public domain for 90 years now. But a lot of the books that really good writers like H.P. Lovecraft, Philip.K. Dick, published for magazines, the copyrights were not renewed on them. And so, I did a lot of those.
Yeah.
But, and those were typically short stories. They might be an hour or a half hour. But the last audiobook I published was about 9 hours.
Wow. That's amazing. So you've recorded dozens of classics from the public domain. Do you have a favorite book you've narrated, or one that surprised you with how fun or difficult it was to voice?
Well, yeah, one I just did was The Sound and the Fury by William Faulkner. And William Faulkner at the time pioneered the chain of consciousness narrative. So you know yourself that your mind will go from today to a different time, back and forth and so forth. Well, Faulkner in his book would signify a time change because the characters might drop back, 20 years to another time. All of a sudden, just bam, bam. And he used italics to signify this. And what I did when I did my audiobook was I used a tone to signify that they were going back. And I really enjoyed doing that book because it was narrated by 3 characters. The first chapter was by Benjamin, who is just turns 32 years old. This covers one day. It's like one day in his life that his birthday, but he goes back years and years as he narrates. So I had to do it basically a 32-year-old that had the mentality of a 3-year-old. So and Caddy said she loved me, and I just so I like doing him. And then you had the other brothers. One was really a skinflint, and the other one was committed suicide. Really a sensitive guy. But it's a really interesting book with the time changes and so forth. And the main character, who Kathy Verdun played, is the sister Caddy. And, she looked out after just about everybody there. And this was a real challenge for Kathy because you had characters going from, speaking in a very normal voice to an Aunt Jemima tone, because Faulkner was very racist. The book is racist. And it was an interesting book to do. Mm-hmm. And also another book I really liked I just did was All Quiet on the Western Front.
Oh, yeah.
And this was written by a man, he was German, who was in World War I. And basically it's fiction. But it's like when I went to Vietnam, we went as a unit. And he went to war with the same attitude. We're going to go over there and we're going to kick their butts and come back heroes. Well, see, he was the only one that came. No, he didn't come back either. They all died in the war. Yeah. And it's like when we got to Vietnam, found out things were a lot different there. These guys were really, really good, even though, we looked at them as guys in coolie hats and so forth, underestimated them.
Yeah.
Which is probably one of the best things you can do is get your enemy to underestimate you.
Yeah. Wow. So how do you approach voicing multiple characters in one story? Do you change pitch, pacing, accent? And are there any ever moments where you crack yourself up or forget who's talking?
Well, it's like sometimes something that gets me really emotional. It's you get in a place where it's like, I cry over a good steak, but these guys, it's sometimes I got to do them several times to just get through that one line. It just really, really moves me. But to answer your question, I hire a female to do the female parts.
Yeah, of course. Yes.
So that takes a lot of editing, but I don't do good female. You can use different accents, dialects and so forth. And I'm not really not that great at doing different voices. I mean, I can't do Donald Duck and things like that. I'm who I am.
Yeah. Okay. Audiobook production can be a one-man orchestra, reading, editing, mixing, mastering. Do you handle it all yourself? And what advice would you give to someone over 50 who wants to jump into voice acting or narration?
Okay. To answer your first question, with artificial intelligence and, things have really progressed. It's like I can record something and I have a program that it does dialogue isolate. So if there's a noise in the background, like there is now where we are, I've got a fan going and so forth. Well, the dialogue isolate gets that all out. So and it's easier to take, for example, when I'm doing a female voice along with me, I will do my part, and then I'll stop and I'll copy the female voice and just paste it in, and so it flows very smoothly now. As opposed to back in the old day when they used tapes and stuff like that. It's very easy now. I use Adobe Audition, and which is probably overkill because you got a cheap program you get for free, and RX11, which is a really good editing program.
That's great. And do you have any tips for people who are starting late?
Okay. Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned that. If you're an actor, hey, go for it. If you're not an actor and somebody told you you've got a good voice, then that's a nice hobby. It's a nice hobby because it's very hard to break into the industry now. It's and by doing a lot of different things, I found out that the way something looks from the outside is not the way it is on the inside. And if somebody is over 50, it would be a nice hobby, unless you're an actor already. Actors make the transition fairly easily. For example, I have a friend, Peter Burkrot, who was in Caddyshack, but he does audiobooks now, and he does them very well. But he also did films, there's different ways to get paid doing an audiobook. That's kind of getting off the track a little bit. But you can do an audiobook and get paid, go away. There's no royalties. Or you can do a royalty share, and then you're just like having an annuity. It goes on and on. This is primarily what I do is for the royalties. But I have done audiobooks where I just got paid, went away. I did an audiobook that I really liked. It was called Almost the Great Escape. And it was the person who wrote it, his mother passed away and gave him a box of letters. And it was pretty much about her romance with, I don't know, have you ever seen the movie The Great Escape?
Yeah.
Okay, that was real. Not like the movie was, but the primary character that actually did the escape or made it out was from not Denmark, but a place like that. And he was training in Canada where he met this woman. And he was the one that he actually went on and became an airline pilot. after he got out, but I think there were 50 guys that tried to escape, and only two or three made it.
Yeah. Wow.
But
Yeah. So we're gonna take a break and we're gonna play a final game, true or false.
okay,
And it's time to test some quirky facts about your life and career. Are you ready, Mike?
true.
Okay, true or false? You can still perform an auctioneer's fast talking chant without missing a beat.
True.
If true or false, you once fell asleep in the recording booth while narrating an audiobook.
That's false. I almost put myself to sleep, but that's false.
True or false? In your Silicon Valley days, you saw a technology that felt like science fiction at the time.
Not really. I just, it was just a job.
Yeah, just a job. True or false? You sometimes model the voices of characters in your audiobooks after people you've met in real life.
True.
True or false? As an auctioneer, you sold an item so strange that you still chuckle about it today.
Oh, that's true. I can't remember what it was, but it is true.
Okay, true or false? Your family sometimes asks you to use your narrator voice for bedtime stories or special occasions.
True.
And true or false? Your military training still influences how you approach your work today.
True.
You received at least one fan message or review that was really unusual or memorable.
True.
You love seeing people's reaction when they find out you're 84 years young and still narrating audiobooks.
Yes, true.
Okay, let's move on to our final segment, legacy, motivation, and wisdom. Of all the paths you've taken, which chapter gave you the most personal joy? Was it behind the mic, behind the gavel, or behind the wheel in Silicon Valley?
Actually, it was as an auctioneer, behind the gavel.
Yeah. Oh, as an auctioneer, yes. Sorry.
Yes, as an auctioneer. Guys that go to auction school, probably only 2% of them ever become an auctioneer.
Yeah.
And it was a real tough learning curve, and that was, I really enjoyed doing it. And, it's, auctioneers have a big ego. And, you're in charge.
Yeah. That's great. So most people slow down in their 70s or 80s, but you're still recording audiobooks. What drives you to keep going and creating?
Actually, paying my former wife. But, I use the money I make on audiobooks just to supplement my income. And it's a lot better sitting in this booth than sitting out in the living room watching the boob tube.
Yeah, that's true. So if you could send a voice memo to younger self or to someone listening who's facing a big setback, what message would you record for them about resilience and reinvention?
A lot of times it's just a setback is actually put you at an advantage later on. And working through it is, it's important. There's a thing from Vietnam that says, drive on, it don't mean nothing.
Yeah. Wow. Any final advice for people who wanted to be voice actors or voice narrators?
Well, it's a tough field to break into, and it's a lot of work. It was a lot of work for me becoming an auctioneer, and it was a lot of work for me becoming an audiobook narrator, and and plus, there's nothing like being lucky.
Yeah. So you need the skills and the luck at the same time.
Yeah, and I mean, it's like I was fortunate in that I have an income to keep me going.
That's true.
Because when you change, you're not going to just step into something like this. So you better have a backup or be a starving artist.
That's true. So, Mike, how can our audience connect with you?
www.mikevendetti.com.
That's great. So we're nearing the end of the show, Mike. That's all, folks. Thank you for watching. Mike Vendetti, everyone. Thank you, Mike.
Hey, thank you. Thank you. I never met a microphone I didn't love, and there we are.
Thank you.